presentation, so it will be very quick. But if you want to get in touch, my contacts will be at the end of the slide, and this PowerPoint will be with Dudley, and he can share it as well. My first two slides is about the advantages of having international labor. So obviously there's a lot of advantages of having international labor, but just to summarize, particularly in the care industry and in the healthcare and social care industries, that there's been a shortage of employees locally. British and Irish employees have been difficult to get, and since Brexit, we cannot employ EU employees without necessarily having the proper paperwork, unless if they are on the EUSS visa, which some of them are, but some of them are not. So there is a lot of advantages. They've brought in a lot of stability to most businesses that were struggling to get employees within the UK. So these are the advantages of having staff that come from abroad. But bringing in staff from abroad has got also its own challenges. And as a lawyer, I've been dealing with some of the challenges that have been faced by employers and employees alike when it comes to staff that have come from abroad. So the first one that I want to talk about is about cultural adjustment. Most of the staff that I have seen in the health and care industry have come from either Africa or Asia, and they've faced a lot of cultural changes coming from cultures that predominantly patriarchal, for example, and there's also issues to deal with religion and the social structure, which is different from the United Kingdom. So they faced challenges in adapting to a new culture, understanding the local norms, communication styles, and workplace etiquette, which my predecessor was just talking about. So in terms of communication skills, the way people communicate in different countries, in different cultures is different, and when they come here, they have to adjust and try to speak using the British ways. We cannot even say British ways, because the way people communicate in London and Birmingham and Wales might be different. So that's another challenge that is there. And then there's the change of culture and norms. This has been a big one because the change of culture, for example, if someone is from Africa, mainly most African countries, there is a structure in the household. For example, there's the father, the mother, and they've got particular duties that are defined by either the gender or the sex of the person in the house. And now when they come to the UK, those the tables are turned. The one who was the provider in the family is no longer the provider. The one who was calling the shots can no longer call the shots because they are a dependent, or they do not understand the culture in the UK. So that causes a lot of issues leading to domestic violence, issues to deal with children, where in certain environments people are allowed to smack their children. And in the UK, of course, smacking without an instrument or a weapon might be allowed, but that can still bring you into trouble depending on the injury or the injuries that have been perpetrated on the child. So children are being taken into care, and there's also issues to deal with mental health and crime because of the cultural changes that people are experiencing. So it is important for an employer to have a culturally inclusive environment, and also to have cultural sensitive training in the workplace. So the way we train our people, we've got basic trainings that we do, but we also need to consider the cultures of the people that we have employed. You know, sometimes some people come from cultures where they have to dress in a certain way, act in a certain way, not mix with certain genders and so forth. We might have to consider that as necessary. Language barriers. And this one is interesting because for an employee to come from abroad, one of the requirements of the Home Office is that they should have the English requirement, and normally they would do the IELTS level, B1 level, or if they've got a degree from their own home country, they send it to ECCTIS to be verified, but they meet the English requirement. But when they come to the UK, and I've had some employers experiencing problems with this, that they are surprised that the employees can hardly speak English, or can hardly understand English, or if they do, they are struggling because of the different accents that are out there. In my example I've used, I know the accent in London might be different from in Coventry, and if you go in Birmingham, they've got their own accent in there and so forth. So people tend to struggle with the different accents, so much that it's a problem for the employees, the employers, and the service users, because sometimes the service users might also have problems understanding the person that is giving them the care that they're supposed to receive. The employees also face problems, stress problems due to moving to a new country, which we know is quite stressful. There's logistical problems such as finding house accommodation. Some employers do help their employees to find accommodation, and setting up the utilities and navigating into a new town or city. But if you do help your employee to get accommodation, then you have to make sure that the accommodation is habitable, it's not in squalor conditions. And if you've made any agreements that they are going to pay for the accommodation, then it has to be written down. Any money that you are going to recoup from the employee should be documented and agreed. You cannot recover money for the COS and the immigration skilled charge from the employee. And again, there's an update that was done in December last 2024, that anything to do with any administrative costs, you cannot recover it from the employee, otherwise your sponsor license will be either suspended or revoked. They also face challenges in finding schools, adapting to the new education system. I know of certain countries where a child comes to the UK, they are in primary school and they may be around the age of 13, 14, and when they come to the UK, all of a sudden they're into year 10 or 11, they're into secondary school, almost ready to write GCSE exams. So those are some of the challenges that they face. Dependents like the spouses face difficulties in finding employee due to visa restrictions, language barriers, and non-recognition of their qualifications. Someone was a lawyer in Africa, Asia, or they were an accountant and they think they will be an accountant in the UK, then it doesn't happen so quickly, leading to frustrations, leading to domestic violence, leading to all sorts of things within the house and at work, and then that affects your employee, who then does not perform according to your standards. It will be helpful if employers can help in, for example, finding accommodation, having an integration program that you do in your as part of your induction and settling the employees, helping them maybe financially as much as possible, and helping them to integrate into the community if you know of any community integrating programs that exist in wherever they are going to be staying. So moving again, they've been used to their families, friends, being around church, mosque, temple, religious leaders and so forth. Now they're coming to the UK and all of a sudden they're by themselves. So that feeling of loneliness and isolation can also impact on their well-being, and they can also impact on their performance in the workplace. Visas and legal issues. So navigating visa requirements and staying compliant with immigration can be complex and very stressful. Even for a person like myself who is a lawyer, I always have to try to keep up to date with the Home Office, who change the law almost every week and every month. I saw an update that Peter put on on the chart. That's something that is coming, and that's a cost that has increased. For the COS fee has increased 100% nearly, for you guys, the employers, and so forth. So it's difficult to keep up with the Home Office, and there were changes that happened. For example, in March 2024, where a CQC requirement was put in on all providers that want employees on SOC code 6135 and SOC code 6136. But some people had been operating with them before that, or there is at least a proviso that you can still continue, but you have to look whether or not you can do that, or you can switch to other SOC codes that might be applicable. There's issues that students cannot switch without completing their studies, or from March 2024, people who are on the K visa cannot bring dependents, and that has been tricky for most people who came as a couple. So one came as, the wife was the COS holder, the husband a dependent. The husband then gets a job which is in line with his training back home, and he wants to switch, and so forth. So there's kind of things that are happening. So it's difficult to keep up with the Home Office, let alone legal obligations. So legal obligations, I'm speaking about the law in general. Originally, I am from Zimbabwe myself, and I know that back in Zimbabwe, the law is not as enforced as much as we do in this country. It's not surprising to see people driving without putting seat belts on, or some people being naughty to drive and drink and so forth. So people coming from such an environment where the law is laxed and coming here, no wonder why there's been a spike of some drink driving cases, a lot of accidents, people going through road traffic lights, and people who were used to an environment whereby they could abuse their partners or spouses by spiking them, or domestic violence. Now they are going to the police and having criminal records affecting their DBS and so forth. So there's a lot of other things that our employees need to know about. There's a funny story of someone who was saying, when I pass this orange thing in the road when I'm driving, it always flashes at me. Did you know that it's a camera, and all of a sudden there's a lot of tickets coming in, and the employer requires that person to be driving, and now they're facing DVLA issues. So in settling our employees, these are some of the things that we need to talk to them about, even when you're doing your supervisions, your appraisals, your team meetings, social gatherings that you are doing with your employees. Let's discuss these things. Career progression. International recruits may face barriers to career advancement. The integration might be difficult. You need to offer them continuous professional development opportunities, mentorship programs and training workshops, and ask them for their feedback, because as an employer you might be thinking you're doing very well, and indeed you might be doing very well, but they might see it in a different way. So it's important to have a feedback from your employees there, all of your employees, but in this case we are talking about the employees from abroad. Financial challenges, especially when they are coming to the country, because when they are coming to the country, most likely they would have incurred a lot of costs in preparing to come to the UK. They've had to use money to get their English certificate, their training in their home country. Some have to do the TB test, visas, and so forth. So they've used a lot of money. When they come here, some they even come without any money or little money at all. So they face a lot of financial challenges. And if the employer can help one way or the other, then that's fair and fine. The Home Office offers employers a chance to assist their employees, especially for the first month of relocating to the UK, where they ask you on the COS, when you're applying for the COS, whether or not you're going to maintain them. And maintenance means the employee and their dependents, so just for your clarification. And if you are not maintaining them, then the employees, you have to submit their own bank statements of 28 days prior to the visa application. And in certain countries that I know, they do not have bank statements, the majority of the population, because banks there, they've got a habit, or the governments there have got a habit of changing laws, or the banking charges are very high and so forth. So it's something that that is a challenge. There's also cases of abuse from employers. I know of cases where some employers have been withholding salaries, garnishing some money, and with unlawfully withholding money from employees and so forth, giving accommodation in squalor conditions, etc. And this is because the employer is saying, I brought you to the UK, and there's been some other, I would just say, under the carpet things that has happened between the employer and the employee, so much that even the employee is afraid to go and take the right course legally because of certain things. Maybe they are related, or there've been threats of that will do this to you if this happens, and so forth. So there's cases of abuse from employers, and I'll just encourage you guys to just be the good guys, not to abuse your employees. So if we are to retain our staff, then we need to be committed to give competitive salaries and benefits, offer life balance and flexible working arrangements. And flexible working arrangements is one of the things that have been proposed in the employment bill, which is going to be debated in Parliament this year. And in the care sector, we have to think how we are going to implement this flexible, because as of right, the employees will have it. They will have as of right sickness pay from day one. 0 hours contracts are going to be dealt with. Paternity leave, passionate leaves, and so forth. All those things are going to be discussed, and they might bring some additional costs to us and adjustments that we need to do to review our contracts, etc. So if you are not aware of the employment rights bill, you need to check it, because a lot of changes are going to be implemented starting from this year. For example, if someone has been working for you less than 2 years at the moment, they cannot successfully sue you for unfair dismissal, but the unfair dismissal right is going to be available to an employee from day one of employment and so forth. So we need to be aware of those things. We need to have a recognition and reward system. We're talking about champions and awards, employee of the month, employee of this, and then the reviews that come from service users, etc., to recognize them so that we can retain them. I've gone over with 3 minutes, but that has been my whistle top conversation with you guys. If you've got any questions, I think either Peter or Dudley can give a Q&A, and then we pick it from there. Those are our contact details. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to our presenters today. Some fantastic information there. I'm very disappointed with the number of folks that have